Saturday, 14th of October 2017, and today we are in southeast London, where we'll be meeting the man that many Sierra Leoneans believe to be the only hope for Sierra Leone's prosperity and future. He is Dr. Kandeh Yumkella, the man people believe that is capable of bringing much needed economic development to the country after 40 years of economic decline. Dr. Kandeh Yumkella worked for 15 years for the United Nations, championing global energy challenge and also bringing industrialization to several developing countries. But now he said he's ready for the biggest challenge of his life. He wants to be the president of Sierra Leone. Will he win the elections next year? We've come to Southeast London to find out. Okay. Dr. Kandeh Yumkella, good afternoon to you. And it's always nice to have you here at the Sierra Leone Telegraph.
Thank you very much.
2 years ago, you came to the UK to meet your supporters and to talk to them about your dreams, your aspirations, especially of leading the opposition SLPP to next year's election. And of course, things have changed. And today, you are in London again to meet your supporters under a new banner, a different banner, and with a different message. What has changed, and what is that message?
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me time. Indeed, I remember a wonderful discussion. It's almost 2.5 years ago, actually. And I was full of enthusiasm, big dreams then. And what I can tell you is that two things haven't changed. My dreams for Sierra Leone are even more solid now because I see the necessity for change that I sense then, now I know it is necessary. Second, what has not changed, I came under the banner of KKY movement at that time, Kandeh Yumkella movement. Today I'm back here under that banner. So first point is that the Kandeh Yumkella movement has survived 3.5 years. We have been able to build an infrastructure across Sierra Leone. We have been able to withstand the intimidation and brutalization that we have experienced in our country from many forces, including forces within SLPP. Very brutal, violent forces. And it has strengthened our resolve that we should in fact be even more aggressive, more ambitious about bringing change to our country. So that has remained the same, but if anything, strengthened. What has changed is that, yes, I broke away from SLPP, along with many very prominent SLPP individuals. Since I left SLPP, every week, there are hundreds of people leaving SLPP too. And for me, it is a demonstration of what I stand for. That yes, we will not settle for the lowest common denominator. That yes, we want real change. And that real change means that you yourself, as an individual, must be able to take bold stands and draw a line in the sand that there are certain principles we will never surrender, we will never compromise. So I am very grateful to the Kandeh Yumkella movement. 3.5 years, almost 4, surviving, learning the processes. What has also changed is that I've learned a lot. There's nothing like learning by doing. There's nothing like being in African politics and being kicked around, maligned, abused, and then recognizing that your only way you should approach politics if we want real change and transformation is to remain true to your principles, that you don't compromise. There's a limit to what you compromise. Yes, politics is the game of the possible. You have to negotiate. It's not always your way, but there has to be certain limits. And in our country, all man, they have an attitude where they say, naphobia. Naphobia simply means become a sycophant, accept the status quo, and toe the line. Well, if we do that, for the next 50 years, we will remain at the bottom of the Human Development Index. The changes we need are so urgent and crucial that there's no time to waste. One thing I just saw last week, and I was reading it again this morning. The Guardian wrote an article based on a WHO new report. The worst place to be a young man is Sierra Leone. Yeah. 2 years ago, they said the worst place to be a mother is Sierra Leone. Why should Sierra Leone always be the worst? That is what I don't agree
Well,
with.
I think what's going to be the challenge for you for next year, March 2018. The challenge for you is that there are many Sierra Leoneans who believe, whether rightly or wrongly, that the ruling APC party has done enough in terms of development to deserve another 5 years to complete the work that you're doing. How are you going to convince those people to vote for you?
I'm a realist. I have been in the country now continuously 2 years, going around the country. I've been an expert in development now over 2 decades. APC has done some good, and I've maintained we cannot throw the baby out with the bath. We'll sift through and look at the good they've done. We will also look at the cost of doing it. So we talk about value for money. And then we also look at the problems that exist. And some of these problems we have to put in a 20-year perspective. If we have one of the worst and highest youth unemployment rates in Africa, they may have done well, but not well enough. If we still have the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, they found it, it is still there. It's not fixed. If they've invested a lot in certain sectors, we have to ask, what is the trade-off? Education is crumbling, completely crumbling. In fact, what I will do is declare an education emergency. If we don't fix education, when our population doubles in the next 30, 35 years, there will be even more instability in our country, including our neighboring countries. So it is always relative. When people tell me in Africa, I've gone through this in my work in Africa, across African countries. When they tell me, we're doing very well, I say, but compared to whom and compared to what? What are your comparators? I have gone to countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, where there was war, where over 1 million people died. Today they manufacture Nike, Gucci and so on, and they export to the first world. They're generating jobs, they have factories, they're self-sufficient in rice production. What are you talking about that you've done well? You're still at the bottom of the heap. 70% of the people in Sierra Leone live below $2 a day. What are you talking about that you've done well? No, our people live in misery. I'm not saying it. That's what The Guardian, that's what WHO and others are reporting. We have some of the worst indicators you can think about. So yes, in 20 years we've done reasonably well, but by gosh, not as well as we should do. We are not fulfilling our potential. That's why you need change. That's why you need new thinking, new expertise, new international goodwill to take us to the level where we should be, because we're way behind in many, many comparators. Competitiveness, cost of doing business. The latest 2017 report, we're 147 out of 190 countries. Excuse me, you think you're going to attract investments? You're way behind. Investment is about having an environment where people feel their capital is safe, where they can bring wealth, invest in technology, in new businesses, so you can have wealth creation and prosperity in your country. If you're 147, it means you're way behind. People choose another location. So when people tell me they've done well, I say to a certain extent, yes, but not as much as they could do or should do to take us to the next level where we should be. And that's the point. That next level where we need to be to address the burgeoning population, to address the deepening poverty. Inflation is at 20% in April. It is now 18%. The exchange rate is expected to devalue. And now we're at about 7,600. The projection from the IMF and the Economist Intelligence Unit is that it will be 8,000 something. If inflation is 18% now, what would it be next year? So when people say things are good, I say that is superficial. Let us dig deeper. And that is part of the problem with African transformation. We do a little bit of cosmetic stuff, we think we're in heaven.
Okay.
That is a fool's heaven.
Okay, so how would you respond to your critics, of which, as you know yourself, there are many?
Yeah.
Your critics who say, well, all that, it's all well and good hearing that coming from Dr. Yumkella, but the fact is, when he was part of the NPRC government, he was the one responsible for selling off our oil refinery in 1994, and also when he was in July, he was head of the Students' Union, he was impeached and so on. How do you answer to those critics?
Very easy. For the selling of the oil refinery, I joined the NPRC in August of 1994. The structural adjustment program started before I arrived. Sierra Leone actually signed an agreement. And if you go into the literature of the structural adjustment program, this is the era of conditionalities. The World Bank and IMF say to you, we will give you money to boost your economy and restructure your economy. That's why they call it structural adjustment. Yeah? If you do the following, and they give you a list of conditionalities. The primary one, and this was the criticism we had as development economists of that program, that it was always one size fits all. Here's what you should do, and here are the conditionalities. You do it, we give you money. You do it, we give you money. And we said you cannot have the same package of austerity measures for every country. So by the time I came into NPRC, that program had been negotiated by Momo and the NPRC before I came in. So there were a list of enterprises that needed to be privatized. There was a privatization commission, and the bank actually paid staff. We call it PERDI, Private Enterprise Restructuring and Divestiture Commission, backed by the World Bank, salaries paid by the World Bank. Everything slated for privatization has to go through that commission. I was a member, but who was chair? Minister of Finance, Central Bank Governor, I was there, and also some other experts. Every entity that has to be privatized was checked by the World Bank. They even sent in consultants if you don't have the expertise. Before I joined, the refinery had already been sold. I came, you can check the dates. And this is so easy to research, you check with the World Bank records. I was there, I visited the refinery to check, say, hey, you got this refinery a year ago, how come there are no operations? So I stand by my record, yeah? But you check also, Manioko was on that list. It was gone before I arrived. Oil refinery was gone. I inaugurated the cement factory, but I was not there when that was restructured. Yeah, Skansem at that time was running the cement factory. I went there for the inauguration. So you should check SLPN be liquidated. Yeah. So you check the list. There's a lot that was liquidated before I came in. What I emphasized was employee owner schemes. I even went on training for that in Central Europe to see how well they had ensured that employees of entities that were to be privatized had shares in the company because they had devoted their life to it. Yeah? And also opening it up to the public so that they could, Sierra Leoneans, so that they could also acquire assets or in fact buy shares. So I was involved in those discussions, but everything is checked by the bank. On the other one about Jala University College, look, I was a student, radical, pushing for change since I was 16. Yeah, so when people tell me that I'm new in politics, I look at them, some of them were in diapers when I was already demonstrating against a one-party state. Some people, in fact, were what should I call it, comprados with the one-party state. When we were risking our lives from age 16, I probably led 4 demonstrations. My first demonstration at Jala University College was 1 month after I was a student. Because I came in with that. We were the group of 77, no college, no school. I was Secretary General of the Union at 18 already. I was President of the Union at about 2021. There were things people wanted me to do. The radicalism was deep. And people wanted me to do more strikes, more demonstrations. There were initiatives I launched. When the kitchen became hot, meaning my colleagues and I fell out over some issues. I came to the university to get a degree. I was top of my class for 4 years. I was in student politics, in sports, but I was still #1 in my class. Yeah? At some point I had to make a choice. Stay in politics or get your Division 1. 3 months before I finished, they were causing too much trouble. Oh, we don't want him. I said, take your damn thing. I came here to get a Division 1. And yes, I graduated top of my class. You gotta make these choices in life. But you know, it's one of the best educations I got about politics. Remember, I started in 16 as senior prefect of CKC. Yeah. 4 years fighting against one-party state and injustice in our country. So I'm very proud of that period. 5 years from age 16 till I left Sierra Leone, learning about politics, the harsh realities. That even people with you, sometimes, you're way ahead of them in thinking. But you gotta learn to make those hard choices. Yeah? So I learned quite a bit, apart from my family history in politics and all the suffering we had, but I learned my own role. And some of those survival instincts have helped me through life.
I'm talking about making hard decisions, making hard choices. We've seen the choice you've made to leave the SLPP, to go your own way, and now you're in process, or a group of people, progressives, are in process of setting up the new national coalition. Where are we with that?
I've always maintained, one of the first speeches I gave 4 years ago at Howard University, you can check, for a group called Green, White and Blue Association. These are second and third generation Sierra Leonean kids in the United States. I didn't know them from Adam. I get this strange email, dear Dr. Yumkella, I would like you to be keynote speaker for our annual dinner. I say, who are these? I don't usually do that. So I ignored it, but I admire them because they persisted. So one day I called somebody. I said, well, tell me about what are them people here in Washington? So I got feedback. They say, Kandeh, these are kids, first year, final year Sierra Leonean Americans. Very sharp. They do the best event in Washington. The hall they rent is Howard University. It's $20,000. I said, are you kidding? They say, please, these kids don't know you. They see you as a role model, give them a day. And I flew in one day and left the next day. It was in that event that I first said, there are no red Sierra Leoneans, there are no green Sierra Leoneans. In other words, I paraphrased Barack Obama. No red states, no blue states. I said, we are all just Sierra Leoneans with a common destiny, looking for prosperity of our nation and our people. I say, in my view in the future, we are going to need a grand coalition of progressives. So imagine 4 years ago, and that's what people don't know about me. I'm very consistent with ideas, but as a typical Cancerian, I'm tenacious. I hold on to a concept and I start building on it. So I give you an anecdote. Last week, a friend of mine, I will not name which corporation. This is a corporation with probably 250,000 workers around the world. Their annual revenue is probably 60 billion. He's a non-executive chairman. He sent me an email. By the way, Kandeh, how are things now? I say, oh, now we've moved on. I'm now in the National Grand Coalition. You know what he replied? Typical Kandeh, always building partnerships. Yeah, so my point to you is, I am convinced that there are a lot of progressives in that country. I've spent years now, especially the last 2 years, talking to people, young people within APC, SLPP, PNDC, and non-political. And they ask me, what are these progressives? I say, anybody who wants positive change for their people and themselves. And that those changes we can define by sector, by generation, by demographic. I say, so it's the student that cannot find a job after they graduate for 3 years. And they're looking for a job. That's a progressive. They want change in their life. They've graduated, no job. It is the market woman who goes there because of 20% inflation. They sell the whole day, they make 1,000 Leon profit. You can feed a family on 1,000 Leon, but they want change in their condition. It is the Okada rider who goes around every day, but petrol now is suddenly 6,000 per liter. So he's not making much money. It is the school, it is the over 30,000 teachers without payroll identification number. It is the ex-servicemen, almost 20,000 of them, who have fought for that country, fought for democracy, protected us against rebels, who are hanging around various towns across the country with no sustainable livelihoods. It is not just politicians. It is those of us who resent corruption in all institutions. People think the corruption is just the cash. The corruption is the decay of institutions, from university to schools and so on. And people don't even begin to appreciate the long-term impacts. When the health sector does not work, when we're churning out students from our school systems who cannot find a job, they do not have the skills for the job, and they're hanging around. That's the next instability. So for me, the definition of progress, people assume that it is just political parties. No, for God's sake, it's people. Yes, we can go into strategic alliance with other political parties, but the grand coalition of progressives is about people. People coming together. It's about people power. Coming together to say, we must have change. We cannot be taken to the dustbin all the time. We cannot be bottom of the heap. Worst place to be a youth. Worst place to be a mother. High on the corruption index. Low on competitiveness. Low on cost of doing business. No. We want to change that because we used to be the Athens of Africa. And some of us believe we can bring that back.
And you believe that with 5 months to presidential and general elections next year, you believe you've got time to get the coalition off the ground and then start the campaigning, build up steam, build up the critical mass to win the election next year?
Yes, sir, because Kandeh Yumkella movement has existed 3 years before the National Grand Coalition. You remember when you interviewed me, you know, in that hall that day we had over 500 people in an amphitheater. That's what we did almost 3 years ago. Today we still pull crowds. When I'm a professional, you know, so I do public lectures across the country. I do it in Freetown, I get over 1,500 students. I do it in McKinney, same number. I do it in Kenema, 2,000. I see a hunger in that nation as we sit here. Yeah? This is October. I have 5 requests. Kabbalah, Kono, Potloko, Tsonkolili, all for public lectures from whom? Young people. Young people who say, we just want to benefit from the fountain of knowledge. We want him to inspire us, and that's my purpose. To change the political narrative, to empower you to say, you gotta dream big. This is not your condition. None of you were born to be poor and ignorant. We had an opportunity, our generation, the best of education, and we went everywhere and we excelled. You deserve even better than that, because they discovered more resources after we left. Yeah? Much more than when we were there. But we had people, with all their faults, who built a good education system. And yes, when some of us got to the States, they thought we had gone to primary school in the United States. No, it was in Sierra Leone. We need to bring that back for our people. So I believe there are many of those, and I've seen the response in the country. We also have almost 700,000 new voters who are not affiliated to a party. Let us all we ask for, free and fair elections, no intimidation. Leave us alone to take our message to the people. Even those who claim they've been around 60 years. You should not worry about people like me. Take us as novices, or let the marketplace of politics decide. And I know we can beat them.
Okay, so in a few hours' time, you're going to be in a hall not too far from here, where hundreds of people are going to be there to listen to you. What's your message for them today, and what do you hope to achieve from today's visit?
My message to them today now is to look ahead and to answer the question, what could we as a collective do in our country over the next 5 years? That's what I want to begin to talk about. I've spent quite a bit of time critiquing policy, writing about that. I've written about the leakages in government. I've written about the debt burden and so on. I've spent time now educating people around the country on the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to continue that. But at the same time today, I want to focus on priorities. And my priorities are very clear, and also with the group there in Sierra Leone that I've been consulting. So I want to talk about the future. Education is always number one on my list. Education is the big liberator. My team and I will declare an education emergency within 24 hours of assuming governance. And I will revamp that education 5 years and more. Because I know that's what gave me what I have today. And there are many things we can do. You have 25% of primary schools in that country without toilets and clean water. Yeah? You have people graduating from our secondary schools, they can't write a complete paragraph with the right commas and full stop. Yeah? We need to introduce digital education so that people leapfrog into the digital economy. That's where the new jobs will be in the future. The Kenyans already have, they call it, what do they call it now? Silicon Savannah. Yes? And guess what? One of the pioneers there is a Sierra Leonean PhD from MIT that I met last year, David Sengen. He's that good. I want our kids to know that yes, you can be a David Sengen. Graduating top of your class at MIT. He's now in Kenya, heading one of the programs in the IBM lab. So education crucial, but depoliticize education. Our universities are littered with politics now, in the administration, in the schools. That's killing our education. First of all, I don't want to, if I'm president, I don't want to be chancellor of the university. I know what academia did for me. I was in the best of the best in the United States. Cornell, University of Illinois, teaching at Michigan State. I've done a lecture now at MIT and also Oxford last year. I know what quality, so depoliticize education. And there are many things we can do. Second, healthcare. In fact, I call it a social sector accelerator program. You can see my energy all coming in. There are good things we've done, it's about acceleration. Their good plans is about acceleration of implementation. Africa is full with plans, lack of execution, and effective, sustained execution. So for education and healthcare, yes, my dream is to say, look, I reduce the number of Sierra Leoneans who have to go to Ghana, India, and Senegal just to do basic diagnosis. Yeah, I want a state-of-the-art healthcare system. I want to accelerate the implementation of the post-Ebola recovery plan. Donors spent millions developing that plan. It's all about implementation and the technical capacity to implement. We have hundreds of Sierra Leonean doctors around the world. There are many of them I know who are friends. They're ready to volunteer time. And I see people doing that in Senegal. I know Sierra Leoneans who volunteer time in Senegal. You know what they say to you? They don't give us hassle. When you go now with country, then if you say all things are politics, don't say you want their job. No. I saw Dr. Nimata. Nimata's last name now, I knew her before in another name. But Nimata and a group of Sierra Leonean doctors, they've improved the curriculum now so Sierra Leoneans can specialize. And they were on radio last month, encouraging Sierra Leoneans to specialize in medicine. After your GP, you can now, and it's accredited across West Africa and in Europe. Yeah, I want to work with people like those because yes, they believe we can be centers of excellence. You don't need to go to Ghana to specialize. We have surgeons in our country. So there are things like those I want to do health sector, and the plan is there. They spent millions developing that plan last year. Our government even asked for almost $500 million. So I want to know how far have we gone. Don't throw the baby out with the bath. So I've talked about education, I've talked about healthcare, agribusiness. 70% of the population still lives in the rural area. They're packing into cities. So we have to delocalize growth and development. Fourth one, under that rubric, you can talk about economic diversification. We've learned the hard lesson that you cannot rely on one commodity. We relied on iron ore alone, too much. Markets crashed, we're in trouble. So we need to diversify agribusiness, light manufacturing, tourism, the IT, what we call the digital economy. These are possibilities to expand that economy, and I'm consulting a lot now with bankers and investors, just like I used to do in my last job, saying to them, what do you need to see in my country to risk $1 billion or $500 million? What would it take? And they're telling me now, so we worry about sovereign risk. And I know what that means, especially when you're looking at long-term investments in energy and so on. People have to borrow money. They will recover that money maybe over 20, 25 years. They worry about changing public policy. They worry about other things. So I'm asking them, what would it take to bring you in my country to partner with locals? What would it take you, the bankers, Standard Chartered, Barclays and others, to risk capital, to lend somebody $50 million so that they can build a factory in my country? What would you look at? Because the entrepreneur can have the ideas, but it's whether they will finance. So you've got to talk with both, and that's what I was doing the last 5 years globally on energy systems, big, small. So I know that. This is why I say to people, I come with skills that are unique. Yeah, I've lived out, but I've been working in development, in India, in China, in Vietnam, in Latin America, other places, and I've seen what they've done to transform. Yeah, the healthcare system in Rwanda, they had the best, at least up to last year, they had the best immunization rate in Africa. How can Rwanda deliver vaccines to 80% of their kids bam, within 1 week? Organization, delivery systems. They're not rich, they're landlocked. We're richer. How come they can do it, we can't? Ghana is introducing one industry, one district. I'm looking at it because in my last career, I used to promote the Indonesian, Japanese, Thai concept of one product, one village, one product. I see a modification now. So in Sierra Leone, yes, it is possible. You can set a plan like that. So the big question, if you're sitting on 13 billion tons of iron ore, can't you have a smelter? It's a question. Good question. So I'm going back home in November. I'm going to do a major conference now on value addition of raw materials. And I asked that question. You may not build it today, but is it not an ambition we should have? 13 billion tons. To ship iron ore from Sierra Leone to Asia is about $17, I think, per ton. Already, because of the way the infrastructure has been done, it is costing between $30 to $40 a ton. So you add it together, it's costing the operator almost $47, $50 a ton. They're operating at a loss already. So how do you work with them to improve competitiveness in the logistics so they can sell it? But if you're not making money, maybe you add value with us. You make money here, you make money there. If you check, I did a speech in China on chocolate-led growth. It's published by the Project Syndicate. You can Google it. I said chocolate-led growth. Why? I said there, if I'm a Ghanaian or Ivorian, I know I account for almost 60% of the world's cocoa production. I want to produce chocolates. And I want to sell it to 200 million Chinese. If I succeed there, I can compete with Nestle. Because I have the raw material. What I need is the scientific management. I need technology. I need markets. I need finance. I can do even two-stage value addition. It was the same thing I said. If you're Guinea, you're sitting on almost 30% of the world's bauxite. Don't you want a smelter to make aluminum? If Abu Dhabi is trying to build an aluminum hub, they don't have bauxite. If they can ship iron ore and bauxite to Iceland, you know, I used to sit with the president of Iceland in my advisory board, and he said, Dr. Yumkella, we use geothermal energy to create an industrial hub, so people ship their raw material with processing because of cheap energy. Well, I have 13 billion tons of iron ore. How can I work with the producer to say, what do you need in my country? So that you make money here and smelt, but you help employ 2,000, maybe another 2,000 Sierra Leoneans. But it is the skills you bring. You'll bring scientific skills here, and maybe I'll have people now saying, no, I want to make engines now. If I can smelt here, that's what the Koreans need. And I've been
electricity. Where are we going to get it?
You need power. Exactly. So my last priority, energy and infrastructure. Now you see why I was Mr. Energy. The Chinese did a documentary on me, Man of Energy. CNN did a documentary on me, African Voices, because of my energy work. You cannot industrialize without a reliable, cheap source of energy. You cannot join the digital economy without a reliable supply. Electrons run through computers and mobile phones. But also, it is the health dimension. You need reliable energy to deliver health services. You know, I've been to Rwanda with the Minister of Health and Minister of Energy, visiting rural hospitals. There is a limit to your diagnosis if you don't have power to really do more extensive diagnosis. Rwanda can distribute vaccines on time because, yes, they can store it 1 month before vaccination time because they have a cooling system. You see what I mean? You begin to see the multi-dimensions of energy. Then you understand Yumkella heading an industrial agency, why he was fighting for energy investments in Africa. That's why I say to people in Sierra Leone, common sense get limits. Common sense not a build computer. Common sense not a build plane. Common sense not a build factory. Not technical knowledge. That's the difference between me and my competitors. I hope the people listen. I hope they elect me. We take Sierra Leone to another level.
Dr. Kandeh Yumkella, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.